Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for your service. I think it's clear that we have tremendous concerns about the Russian hacking in our elections, and I think it's more than ironic that we have a president-elect who kept talking about our elections being rigged, which I would consider trying to interfere with our elections to be a part of a rigged kind of an election. At the same time, he denied Russia's activities in this regard. Some of this was already touched on regarding the president-elect's attitudes toward the intelligence community and the morale the impact on morale. So going forward, as we are challenged by the need to have more cyber aware or skilled cyber workforce, if this attitude toward the intelligence community doesn't change on the part of decision makers, including the president, would you agree that it would make it that much harder, Director Clapper and Admiral Rogers, to attract the kind of cyber experienced workforce that we need to protect our country?
Well, it could. I don't know that we could say it's some of these statements have had any impact on recruiting. It
Or
could.
retention?
I think it could on retention. I think just maybe embellish what Admiral Rogers was saying. I do think that consideration needs to be given to having more flexibility, more latitude on compensation for our high-end cyber specialists who are lured away by industry
Yes.
or paying huge salaries. That's not why you're in the government, not why you serve in the intelligence community, is not obviously for money. But I do think that in those highly technical, high-end skill sets that we badly need in the government, in the intelligence community, that it would be helpful to have more latitude on compensation. On the mic.
And I would agree, coincidentally.
Very briefly.
I've spent both of these individuals a note within the last 24 hours, of which I said, using my authority as the director of NSA, I am going to authorize the following increased compensations for the high-end cyber part of our workforce, because I am just watching loss.
Yes, of course, and it's not just compensation that attracts people to what we're doing in our intelligence community, because service to the country is a very important motivation, and of course, I would think that morale would be very much attendant to that. There was some discussion about what would constitute in the cyber arena an act of war, and Director Clapper, I note in your testimony that I think that this is one of the reasons that we want to develop international norms in this arena. So who should be the key players in developing and agreeing to these international norms in the cyber arena? And if the big players are US, China, Russia, if we don't have those players at the table to come up with these international norms, how realistic is it to develop and
Well, that's exactly the challenge.
adhere?
And those are the key nation states that would need to engage. And there has been work done under the auspices of the United Nations to attempt to come up with cyber norms, but I think we're a ways away from those having impact.
Would you agree, Admiral Rogers?
Yes, ma'am.
Turning to the awareness of the public as to the extent of the threat, a 2016 opinion piece by two members of the 9/11 Commission, basically they said that the most important thing government and leaders in the private sector can do is to clearly explain how severe this threat is and what the stakes are for the country. So Director Clapper, do you think that the general public understands the severity of the cyber threat and the stakes for the country, and what should Americans keep in mind with regard to this threat, and what can ordinary Americans do to contend with this threat?
I think there's always room for more education, and certainly we have a role to play in the intelligence community in sharing as much information as we can on threats posed by both nation states as well as non-nation states. And I think there are simple things that Americans can do to protect themselves be aware of the threat posed by spearfishing, for example, which is a very common tactic that's used yet today. We have a challenge in the government, getting our people to respond appropriately to cyber threats. So this is one case where communicate is the watchword.